Alright guys, so today I'm coming here to talk to you a little bit about modern classroom and the applications it does have in the modern classroom. So when I heard about this, they were telling me all these things about how it was going to make your kids more successful, how it was going to make you more successful. And when we were going through this process over in the Summer Institute, we really talked about some of the things that go into it. Now before I look at my applications, which we're going to talk about in a second, I want you guys to know that when we went through our COVID year together, because we all went through it together, that we really had to embrace a lot of the core concepts that are in this. So when you're paying attention over the last year trying to make your students successful, some of these things should have already come up for you. So when we look at the applications, for me personally, the four things I got out of it was it's self-paced, it's mastery learning based, student oriented, and it really brings into that concept of you're flipping the classroom away from an active teacher role where you're at the front actively teaching to where you're putting it on the students and you're working with them. So our three things in the self-paced learning, are our must-dos, should-dos, and aspire to do. So there's these things that to learn any topic. So I teach history. So when I'm talking about World War II, the must-dos for me are covering, why the United States decides to join World War II, why the Holocaust happens. Our should-dos are going to fall into things like who were the major people in charge of the countries, who were they, what were they doing, what were their political ideologies. And our aspires to do should be learning, like, how does that apply to today? So I was talking to my kids the other day about the Holocaust, and we really got talking about the concept of herd mentality, and the bystander effect, about how this awful event could happen and how we allow it to happen, but we really want to connect it to today and try to make them understand that we need to be active participants instead of watching from outside and letting things happen. But how those two things really do lead us to allowing horrible things to occur in America, horrible things to occur in Germany, and horrible things to occur, and how we need to take an active role in preventing that. And that's just an example of our must, should, and aspires in my classroom. When we talk about mastery learning, self-paced of course, but mastery learning and COVID really got us there. Mastery learning, when we talk about it, when we think about it, isn't enough for us to teach a concept and then move on. Or should we teach a concept, make sure everybody from A to Z at least gets the basic concept, can talk about it, know it, and then move on. So really what happens in a traditional setting is I get up, I lecture for 20, 30 minutes, I give them a quiz, I give them a piece of paper, I tell them to do something, and then in a week I move on to my next topic. We really need to take the time to sit down, look at where our students are, see where we want them to be, and then move forward on making sure they're actually learning it, they're mastering that content. You can say content, depending where you are, you can say standards. I know that people love to talk about standards. But making sure that they got what's going on so they can actually go forward with it. So, student-centered. The concept that you need to move away from the teachers in charge, that the teacher's the one that should be the source of all knowledge, and moving it to where you're putting knowledge to where they can access it. That you are a facilitator getting them to where they need to be. So I could lecture for days, weeks, months, years about a topic. And a student will leave no richer in knowledge than they walked in. But I like to, my personal is, I like to give an introduction to talk, an introduction lecture, and then we like to dig into those primary sources, those documents that give them agency, that give them the ability to choose sort of where they go with their education on that topic, and gives them the chance to explore a personal pathway to their own success. And of course, we're talking about technology. We're talking about, those should-dos, must-dos, aspire-to-dos, and we're talking about integrating all of that to where the student leads better. Not that I lead better, that I already know the topic, but the student actually leads with the knowledge needed to go forward. And finally, oh gosh golly, that's blurry when you make it big. I know technology can be a problem, but we just got to make sure we adapt and overcome as we go on. And that's sort of where I want to make sure it was a little blurry for you guys, is we have this traditional classroom of I lecture. you go forward. But we need to clear it up. We need to really move it to where the kids have access to all this information. And then when they come to class, they're ready to go over it. That's what goes into that self-paced. That's what goes into that mastery. That's what goes into making it student-centered, making everything work to where everybody can leave better than they came in. Not because I talked for 55 minutes, but because they actually took some agency and took some control of their own education and made themselves better. So if you are interested in Monty Classroom, I think that you should definitely look into it. Not only should you look into it, I think that it's a great thing for all teachers to at least give the time of day to make sure that there's something that they can get out of it. Because we need to realize that it's not our jobs as teachers to talk for 55 minutes. It's our jobs as teachers to make sure our students come to us when they leave. They're not only smarter with more knowledge, but they get a richer interaction and they get those connections they need to be successful down the line.